Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options in Play video update. Today's video is in the quick hitter category. Uh, that means is going to be talking about CLDR. It's a name I haven't talked about much since earnings, but there's some positive stuff going on, and it's showing some parallels to a recent trade that you guys probably remember, HDP. So uh, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on with this one. So I'm sure you guys have noticed that a lot of our trades, or not a lot, but there's definitely a bunch of our trades that start as earnings or an event trade, and then turn into a swing trade if things work well, right? So basically, what we mean is that we like a setup specifically for an event, and then once that event plays out, and if the stock is kind of moving in line with our thesis, we like to ride that position, as long as that thesis stands. So, if it's looking for like a bull breakout or volatility bet, and then the thing starts to shape up well, and it settles into one of like those nice trends, then there's reason to hold on to it, and you get like a catalyst that turns into a swing, and you just kind of ride it as long as things dictate. So, I mean, obviously, in those scenarios, we're going to trim and manage along the way. But there's definitely been instances where an event trade ends up turning into maybe like a couple months swing trade, or a couple weeks swing trade, vice versa, stuff like that. So, in terms of some of our swing trades, CLDR hasn't been that long of a hold, but this is one that started as an earnings trade, and it's still open a few weeks later, and it's starting to show some like positive signs. So basically, this is a name into earnings that was kind of an interesting setup. So first off, software stocks. This is software stock, small cap software stock. The group have been great. There's a really closely correlated peer, Hortonworks, HDP, just a couple weeks before had returned in like really strong results. CLDR, you can see, had rising support. It was well off its high. So it just seemed that risk was kind of favorable going into this quarter for bull bet. It it had some interesting technical levels that were a little bit further away. So it obviously was trading down below 15. So there was this 200-day, which was resistance back in June. There was a gap from the June quarter, and then you go back even further. There's this massive monster gap from April. So basically, what we want to see was if the number's good, can it pop to get through this 200-day and close the gap from June, and then B, if it's really good, can it even extend further into this huge gap up like near 22? So long story short, you can see a really nice quarter, kind of similar to HDP, and the stock had a pretty big one-day pop up to the first two targets, so past the 200-day and to close the gap, and you're able to roll like the initial November 16, 1750 call right away. And normally we like to roll same month or even buy a little bit more time. But in this case, because the momentum was so strong and options had actually, the implied volatility had shot up because of like the big move, we decided roll into a shorter dated October 19th 20 call. Was kind of interesting just because it still gave upside exposure and over a month until expiration. But it's kind of tough initiating like a long-term position when the implied volatility is really like rocketed higher. So now, you can see clearly that momentum kind of dried up a little bit. Stock has pulled back, starting to consolidate, but really like a nice area that it's consolidating at, like a real positive development. I mean, it's hanging above the previous high, the previous June high. Tight consolidation. Moving averages are catching up underneath. The 20-day is just about there. And it basically seems like it's prepping for another leg higher, and then there's this really obvious gap up to 22. And why this has some parallels, so let me pull up HTP. So this was a name, let's before we get there. So this was a name you can see very similar. It was stuck near the low. It was stuck near the low going into earnings. The sector was strong. What happens? They have like this really strong report. Stock pops and like takes off right away. So kind of like a similar setup, pulls back and then it's hanging around the top of previous resistance. You can see, I mean, a really similar pattern. And then what happened with HTP? It had little shake and bake, right? But then just another major monster leg up, and there's 20% extension through the top of that. So right now, CLDR, you can see that it's playing out very similar, right? And we don't want to see the shake and bake. Nobody wants the shake and bake. But once it does break through this 18.5, so once you get like the power push, the volume, like the strong volume surge through 18.5, maybe like a 10-20% measured move, and you're looking at prices above 20. And while that October 20 call is still, it's a shorter dated contract, I mean, there's still over 3 weeks left until expiration. And in this case, if it plays out, if it gets like that, a similar type move as HTP, there's still time to capitalize on this. So, it hadn't for the last couple of weeks given us much to talk about, but it doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of positives going on here. And it just needs like that next push, that really strong push past 1850 to get momentum going again, and that measured move possibly up past 20. On the option front, there has been some bullish positioning in longer dated calls. So there is interest here. And what we like to see now is once it starts to work on that 1850 area, you want to see like the tack on call buying. So like the flow to like kind of signal that that the participation's there, and it kind of gives us that confidence boost that it's ready to go. So that's what we're going to be watching. Is that tack on call buying, because that's what we love to see when stocks are kind of working on key technical levels. So as always, love to hear from you. Questions, comments, please pass them along. Lots of earnings coming up soon. Earnings season gets going in a little under 2 weeks, so they're going to come out fast and furious. It's been a little bit quieter, but it will pick up really quick, and for a month straight, it's going to be like a real steady flow of news. So lots to look forward to. Have a fantastic night, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, all right?